Yo, guys, what's up, and welcome back to the Marvelous Chats podcast. This is episode 87 of the cast. Tonight, it's myself, Finto, and Alex, aka Zaberwolf. We're going to be talking about the series finale of The Last of Us, and we're going to be talking about episode 3 of The Mandalorian. So, without further ado, let's bring him in. Alex, what's up, brother?
What's going on, man?
How are you?
Pretty good. I had like double audio, and I'm like, oh god, I got to shut it off.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, kind of big week this week. I didn't get a chance to get out to the cinema, but I know as well there was some. Didn't the new Shazam movie come out? I think that came out like 2 days ago.
Yeah, man, but I haven't even watched the first one, and I really need it. Like, I think I'll watch the first one and then I'll watch the second one, just so that if you want to chat about it next time.
I ideally I'd like to try and get out to the cinema next weekend to try and see it. Now, it's a lot harder for me to get out to the cinema now because I've got a 2-month-old baby. But if my parents can babysit for me, then we'll figure it out. But I have seen every single superhero movie in the cinema since like 2009 or something. So I want to keep the streak alive. So I will go see it. I've heard it's kind of bombing in the box office, but I was a big fan of the first one. I like Zachary Levi, and I like what they do with the first one. You know, there's a lot of comedy in it, and it's a good movie. I really like the first one, so I definitely want to see the second one. Helen Mirren's in it, and Lucy Liu and stuff like. The cast looks pretty good. Don't know all too much about the storyline, but I kind of have left it like that on purpose. I've seen one or two spoilers, like the mid-credit scene and the after-credit scene, both kind of ruined for me, but whatever. It is what it is.
Was it at least enticing? Like, was it like, oh man?
It's, again, I don't really want to talk about it until I've seen the movie, but from what I've seen, it does kind of like Black Adam. It just doesn't make any sense, you know. With the current direction as to where the DCU is going, it just doesn't make any sense. This feels like it's another one of those movies that was made before the takeover of James Gunn, and it's like maybe they had in mind for another direction to go, but it seems like they've kind of scrapped that now. So,
anyway. But it didn't turn out similar to, like, you know, what was it, like Morbius or anything, right? Like, fancy meeting you here. Why don't we form a team?
It actually is something like that. But again, I haven't seen it. But again, I saw the mid-credit scene and it was pretty funny. But the after-credit scene, I saw a screenshot from it, but I haven't actually seen the scene, so I don't know what happens in it. But again, we'll leave it for the official review anyway. So I'm actually curious to kind of see what you think if you're going to watch the two of them back to back. And you know, you're relatively new to the whole Shazam thing. Like, it'd be interesting to see what you think.
I mean, anyway, I'm a fan of Billy Batson.
Yeah. No, he's cool.
He's not a bad kid, and I mean, and that's the thing about it is, like, he's a kid, so like that's how you take it in. It's like, oh, he's not like a full on superhero. He's just a kid in a costume kind of situation. But like, no, he's got full on powers and whatnot. So I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, he's badass.
Also, happy St. Patty's Day.
Oh yeah, thank you, dude. Thank you. It's celebrated more over in the US than it is here, funnily enough.
Really?
But, no, they go hard on it in the US, but you know, I don't really do anything for it. I don't like going into the city center because it's just carnage. So, you know, I actually just streamed over on Twitch, had a couple of beers, played some Fortnite. It was a fun night. It was good. But yeah, look, anyway, the reason why we're here, we're talking about The Last of Us. Season is over. First season's done. I got to give a quick shout out before we even talk about it. I was predicting what was probably going to happen from, I'd say, episode 2. Do you remember I kept saying to you, I think they're going to stretch out the story. They're going to try and slow it down. Official word has come out that season 2 is going to be about the second game, but they're going to be changing it up. They're going to be slowing it down. And I had a feeling that was going to happen just because of how much the first season popped off. It was like Game of Thrones like level stuff. Like, it was, the whole world was watching it. It was crazy. So I had a feeling that was going to happen, and it looks like I was right. So, I mean, pat on the back, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Great job, man. Well, like, that's the thing about it though. Like, if the first season does well, then why not just kind of like add a little bit more to it? There's plenty of like backstory for other things that you can add to. There's different characters you can give like a nice emotional like drive towards. And I haven't played the second game yet. I think I'm going to be playing it very soon. So that's going to be fun. I'm actually going to play it with Katie. Because
you're not streaming it then?
I might, I might not. I'm just really like teetering on it. But I think she wants to at least see what happens next,
Oh yeah,
which is why I kind of want to just like play it with her and then just enjoy that feeling together.
yeah,
So I mean, we'll see. I might just do both. You know,
yeah.
that might be fun.
Well, if she wants to watch you play it, like I would love to experience stuff like that with my missus, but she doesn't game anymore. She doesn't have the time for it, and you
Mm.
know she did a lot much earlier in life, and I think we would have really got on well together back then as well. But yeah, she's not into gaming anymore. But I'd love to sit and just be like, here, look, watch me play this game, and we just don't have the time for it anymore. Like
Right.
when I'm live streaming on Twitch,
Well,
I'm live at 10 p.m. at night. I play for like 4 hours and then I fall asleep, and and it's like
I-
it's the last 4 hours of my day. Like that's the only time I can give to it. Like maybe 4 days a week. Like so, it's
right. And it works. It works out for you, man. And it's not so
does,
much
it
that
does.
she. It's not so much that she's like interested in gaming. It's more so like she's interested in story.
Yeah,
Because like I get her to watch anime quite often, and
yeah,
and she's at first wasn't really the kind of person to be like like anime, but like I got her into watching Demon Slayer. She's over 100 episodes in on One Piece, and we're gonna make it all the way to the most recent episode of One Piece. So like she's getting into it, man. Like it's one of those things where like you kind of have to tough out a couple of episodes and it gets a little slow, but like you know it it gets exciting, stuff like that. Like so
yeah.
for someone like that to be so interested in story, The Last of Us is definitely one of those shows that you really want to like just sit back and take a bite out of. and
Oh
and
yeah.
it did a good job. It did a pretty good job of doing it. I think it was a little wobbly on the landing, but I mean, I think it did well.
Interesting. Well, we'll come back to that point in a second. So yeah, like I just like now that the series is over, I suppose first of all, what would you rate the entire series out of 10? Like now that it's said and done, I suppose it's safe to rate the
Mm,
show now.
I'd give it like an 8. Like a solid 8, maybe an 8.5 at the most. I can't really give it a 9 or a 9.5 or even a 10. Um had me in tears at times. It gave some different perspectives to different characters that we never seen before. We've seen different lights to different characters because they had to change the dynamics of it because
Mm,
of course, like he said in the very first episode that we reviewed, Pedro Pascal is getting old. Therefore,
yeah.
he can't be doing he can't be crouching, he can't be doing combat moves and whatnot. But I mean, that's what stun doubles are for, right?
Yeah.
So like it
Facts.
just
Facts.
so I mean, there's no excuse, but at the same time, they wanted to tell the story, not talk about the war in the sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it I would say the finale hit well, but it didn't hit as hard as I wanted it to. I think that Pedro Pascal did a really good job of his emotions and his feelings during the conversations that he had with Marlene and the moment that he caught up with Ellie um and being in the truck and whatnot and having that small conversation with Ellie. But everyone else, I would say, kind of fell flat. Like it was very monotone. I don't know if you felt the same way, man, but like Marlene kind of felt a little like one note. And
Mm.
so did Ellie near the end of it. Like it was very like, I'm just gonna stare not at the camera, but I'm gonna stare down and talk about my feelings very slowly and try to make it sound like I care
Is this Ellie at the start of the episode or at the end?
at the end.
At the end.
Um,
Okay. Yeah, so I think at the end of the episode, again to shoot it right to the end, but I think what's happening there is she knows that Joel is lying to her, but she's kind of conflicted. She's kind of thinking, okay, do I just accept the fact that he's lying to me and move on? Do I, just is their relationship ruined now in a way because she knows that he lied, but their relationship is now forever changed because of this? I think she knows exactly what's going on, but she's having an inner struggle with herself to realize whether does she actually just let it go? Does she understand him, or does she kind of have to live with the fact that now their relationship is a little different? So I
right.
think that was kind of, and you can only imagine being in that situation, and like I think Ellie knows she doesn't know that she's gonna die, right? But I think she knows that if it was down to her to die, I think she would allow it. You know what I mean? Like she knows that
Mhm.
she can potentially save the world or restart the world or whatever. And I think that is a sacrifice that she would make. And I think if given the opportunity to actually, if she was sat down in front of the doctor and the doctor said, "Look, we need to remove your brain. Like we need to do all these tests and blah blah blah. You're not going to make it through this." I think she would have done it. But the fact that Joel has now taken that choice away from her, I think she's kind of has to live with that. But so it's
Right.
like, how is she going to live with that? Is
Exactly.
the inner monologue I think going on in that scene? So I thought it was done pretty well. I was a fan.
Well, I mean, like, yes, Joel took it away. Joel took away that decision, but we have to remember that both parties did.
Mhm.
They took them when they both passed out. They put her under anesthesia. They didn't tell her what was going to happen or give her the opportunity to even think about what was going to happen. Um, and that's partially why Joel was upset about it. But the other part was, of course, that he wanted to keep her alive. Like he felt like she needed to live her life.
Yeah.
And but at the same time, like even Katie was like, nobody gave her a decision. Nobody cared. They just wanted to say, like, one person wanted to save the world, another person wanted to like save a life,
Yeah.
save the life of one.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it should have come down to a decision by Ellie, which you're right. She would have chosen, yes, I would like to go and be a strong part of the saving of the human race.
Yeah.
And but she never got that decision. And I think that's ultimately like what the theme is in terms of this whole show, in terms of the game itself. Like she never, like the young ones sometimes never get a decision.
Hmm.
They're just driven by the decisions of the old.
Yeah.
And it sucks. It really sucks because like it's like you said, like she would have totally been like, yep, do it. But like, no decision. Like, fuck you. Like I was pissed at that both in the game and in the show because like I'm like you and I are both aware of what happens.
Hmm.
But like it just sucks. And yes, I agree with you. Like I think that the eye movement with Bella Ramsey, I think she did a pretty good job, like just standing there, kind of moving her eyes left and right, kind of doing the whole like I'm trying to process everything in my mind.
Yeah.
But if you were to compare the difference between the game itself having that scene and her, like Bella Ramsey giving that scene, Bella is very static. She's very like she's standing there, she's kind of staring off on one side. The Ellie in the game has like full motion, like Ashley Johnson, like she's full motioning. She's like, I was the last one. Like, when's it gonna be my turn? Like she's literally moving her head, she's moving her hand, she's like showing off that emotion. And I wanted that.
Yeah.
And I didn't see it. I agree with you. Bella Ramsey did a good job, but just not as good as she could have done.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. And the fact that you've brought up Ashley Johnson, I think, is a good time to kind of rewind back to the start of the episode.
Oh yeah.
So, the thumbnail for this episode on the channel is actually Ashley Johnson, who is the voice. For anybody who doesn't know, she voiced Ellie in the game. She actually plays the role of Ellie's mother in the show, which I thought was absolutely beautiful. The fact
Mhm.
that she's giving birth to Bella Ramsey's character and being the mother and passing the character on, I thought it was fantastic. And the fact that there's so much of Ashley in Bella, they make her look like her, she acts like her. It was fantastic. Even her first couple of lines in the episode, I said to myself, wow, I was like, I could just hear Ellie. Like she is Ellie, like, it's insane. And she had such a great performance. And I thought it was a very clever way for them, I suppose, to show how she becomes immune. And
Mhm.
obviously when she's given the baby over to Marlene, and she's like, the bite happened after the separation of the umbilical cord, and she's like, after, like stressing after, as in, do not kill this child, the child will be fine.
Mhm.
um I thought it was just such a beautiful scene. It was crazy. Like the acting from the extra who played the ticker as well was just, it was so
It
intense. It was
was
it
chaotic.
was,
Yeah.
yeah, it was insane. And like, like you got to give props to that actress. Like, you know what I mean? No one will know who they are. No one will know their name. But like, my God, what a performance! Like one of the best performances probably in the entire episode.
Mhm.
It was just that extra, like just absolutely killing it. Like, so it was insane. It was a great episode. And then we see obviously the mother killing the ticker with the knife that obviously gets handed down to Ellie then as well, like, which is so cool because I think they had said in the creators of the show and game had said that they wanted to put this into the game, but they never did. And I thought it was just a really cool kind of extra for fans of the game to get in the show, and the fact that it was played by Ashley Johnson was just amazing. It was incredible. So even just from the first 10 minutes of the episode, I was just like, I'm loving this finale already. It's incredible. And then like Pedro was unbelievable in the episode. I thought he was brilliant. The scene where he finds out that Ellie's gonna die, and he's just like, he sits up in the bed. He's like, "Excuse me, what did you say? Like, she's gonna die?" It's like, take me to her now. And then, they try to escort him out of the place, and he just goes full blown vengeance mode and just starts killing everybody. And I was just like, that's exactly what the game is like. And if you haven't played the game, like, pretty much the same thing happens, and you just go on a killing spree throughout that hospital, and it's so good. But the way that Pedro played it was just incredible. Like, I felt like I was watching somebody play the game. It was just so good. The shots he was taking. And he had just no mercy as well. Like, people were unarmed, and he's just like, bang, just straight kill, not even thinking about it, because that's how you would have to be. Like, if you think about it, like, you let somebody live, or if someone drops their gun and you're like, okay, I'll let him go. It's like, 5 minutes later, he's going to be trying to shoot you in the back. Like, so,
right.
it is no holds barred. You got to just let it go and just go for it, So I thought it was incredible. It really was. And Bella's acting at the start of the episode as well, where she was clearly like suffering from PTSD from the events of the episode before. Incredible. Like, really good. Loved it.
Good.
Yeah, really, really good. So like, yeah, I don't know. Like, for me, the show, like, I don't think anything can be a perfect 10 out of 10. It's not possible. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think so. But I think this comes pretty close. Like, I think if I was going to give it a rating, I'd say it would be like 9.3, 9.4. You may as well call it 9.5. And if you're I would round it up to a 10 out of 10 if I had to give it, like, I wouldn't give it a 9 out of 10. I'd give it a 10 out of 10 before I give it a 9 out of 10, So yeah, like, oh man, I just loved it. I really did. I can't wait to rewatch it all. I can't wait to binge it all. Like, I think it's going to be a really good show to sit and watch like 3 or 4 episodes in a row. I think it'd be just a really nice show to just sit in for a night and get really deep into the story. Like, if you did like one sitting and you watched all the way up until the end of the Bill and Frank story, like, that'd be such a good little like movie session, like,
Yeah, like a little tidbit.
Yeah, exactly. And then, like, you could do it in like 3 parts or something, and it'd just be it'd be beautiful. And I now as well want to go back and play the game again. So I'm actually going to purchase the game for a third time, which is wild to me. Like, I genuinely think that it's always kind of a toss up for me between my favorite game of being like the Uncharted series or the Last of Us series. And I don't know, I think now with this show, maybe the Last of Us is going to be a little more important to me in the future. Like, I bought the game originally when it was released on PS3, like day one of the release. I bought it because I loved the Uncharted games, and I was like, these guys are making like a zombie horror game. It's like Nathan Drake but fighting zombies. I was like, I'm playing that shit. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, I was like, fuck yeah, I'm in. Played the game, loved it. Obviously, played the DLC, played the second one. Then I bought the remaster of the first one again, and now I'm buying the remaster of the remaster on PC. So it's being remastered again on
It's
PC.
fantastic.
Yeah, like, it looks amazing, and I think I'm gonna have to buy it on PC and just give it another playthrough. I'll probably end up streaming it on Twitch as well. Shout out to my Twitch.
I mean, that'd be fantastic, man. Like,
Yeah.
I enjoy seeing other people's reactions to different video game stories.
Yeah.
I played games in the past. I played a lot of games in the past, and I think I've grown to the point where I'm like, I enjoy it. I want to see other people enjoy it. So I'm really happy to hear that you're going to be playing it again. I'd love to see that. Also, I am like really excited. I think like, I don't know if they're still doing it or whatnot, but I heard that they were going to work on like a multiplayer for The Last of Us Part 2.
Yeah, because I believe, and I never played it, but I believe there was a multiplayer for the first one.
There was, and it was fucking amazing.
Yeah,
I love that. Like, it was so good.
What did you do in it? What did you have to do?
It's basically
like,
the same thing in the game. It's just, yeah, like you're one side of the Fireflies and the other side of like the Resistance, kind of like a different Resistance group, or like the kind of like the poachers or raiders kind of thing.
Yeah,
the evil and the good side kind of situation. And the coolest part of it was that you can pick a side, and then you basically play the game, and you like succeed or fail. And as you're going through each week, the story unfolds for like what happens to your group
Oh wow.
in a sense. But it's like it's more of like a comic kind of strip after like in between. But it's
Right.
cool that like you're contributing to your community. Like you
Yeah.
like they had a whole thing, dude. Like they had a website showing like how many of what these group was, how much of the Fireflies was. Like it was pretty fun. And
Cool.
and the gameplay style was absolutely fucking awesome. Like it's basically it's just like Joel, but like everybody's Joel.
Amazing. Yeah, I'm sad I missed out on that. I would have actually probably really enjoyed that. Um, yeah, if they do like if they bring out I don't know if they're gonna bring out a third game, but if they were to bring out a third game and do like an online like campaign or something like that, like yeah, I would definitely be down for streaming that. Like with some people in the community, like it'd be so much fun. Imagine
Dude, it
four of
was
us getting
crazy.
together, be a Joel's and just go around like absolutely destroying the place.
Basically, man, like it's so fucking good. Like someone will
Mm.
come around the corner and you'll have like a fucking pipe, or you modified your pipe so that it has like scissors on the end so that you could get a
Yeah,
one-hit kill.
yeah,
Or
yeah.
like you lay down a nail bomb, someone comes around and it'll like go off, or you toss some nail bombs, like you take a sniper and just like snipe people off the like it was so fucking good. Like it basically took the aspects of the single player and was like, just make everybody play it.
Yeah, yeah,
And like yeah, I guarantee you would have loved it.
yeah. I'm surprised the second game they didn't do something now with like obviously the next gen kind of gameplay and stuff like that. Like you'll see when you play because I don't. Did you play? I don't. When did you play the first game? Was it PS3 era, PS4 era?
The on day one I played it, so
Okay,
yeah, it
so
was
and you
PS3.
never played it since.
No, I played it on the PS4 for the remastered, but
Okay, okay,
I didn't play it for the remastered on the
yeah,
PS5 or PC. So
yeah,
like I know that there's new faces, like they've redone the face textures, and so it's supposed to look much better. And I've seen the difference, and it does look definitely much better. I know that a lot of people were kind of like weirded out in terms of like let's say the Spider-Man Marvel, like when
yeah.
they when they changed the face for that. I
They
thought
made
that
some.
was weird.
They did do
I thought that
something
was
like it
weird.
was similar in The Last of Us. Like there was some big changes to some of the characters. Like Tess looked very different, like very different.
Mhm.
Even Ellie looked quite different. So yeah, like I can understand why some people like who are so attached to the original look of the characters get a bit weirded out when they're playing it again and they look completely different. Like the whole
Yeah.
Spider-Man thing, I kind of understand why they did that. Like I think when they started developing that game, probably back in like 2014, like Andrew Garfield was Spider-Man, so it made sense for
Mhm.
them to kind of have him looking a little bit like Andrew Garfield. Like he had the Andrew hair and he kind of went on like Andrew, but then by the time they came around to remastering the first game, Tom Holland was the main Spider-Man. So I could see why they would
To
rework it to
to
make it
kind
a
of
look
like prevent confusion, make it like,
kind
who
of.
the fuck is this guy?
Well, it's so stupid because like they should have just done a completely different version of him anyway. Like because
Yeah.
he isn't either of those Spider Man. Like he is his own Spider Man. And what's kind of crazy is I've heard that he's this PS4. We'll call him the PS4 Spider Man. He's actually going to be making an appearance in the next Into the Spider Verse movie. So
Which I'm
he's
excited
actually
about.
yeah, and they did a comic book run with that Spider Man where he went into the multiverse as well and met different Spider Man, which they're going to actually refer to as well. So it's kind of wild where the whole Spider-Man thing is going because like they are opening up a complete like kind of Spider Verse, and it looks like they're going to be crossing mediums and crossing like universes and kind of interacting with each other. Like there's rumors that there's going to be a Tom Holland version of Spider-Man in the next Into the Spider-Verse movie as well.
Mhm.
And it's like, does this take place like after No Way Home? And it's like he's used to the multiverse now, so he's like, yeah, they're going to reference the MCU movie in there. Like it's kind of crazy. Like
I
I
mean,
love it. I'm all
it'd be
for it.
fun. Yeah, I'm all for it too, man. Because like you want it, like the interconnectivity, especially for Spider-Man. People love Spider-Man. Like
Fuck
it's
yeah.
just it's insane how much people love Spider-Man. It didn't matter if the MCU came out and you had Iron Man, Thor, Black Widow, Hulk, and whatnot. Like
Yeah.
Spider-Man is still on top.
Yeah.
And
And like I would just to top out to add to that as well, like I would have never like obviously it's amazing to see Spider-Man with Captain America and Iron Man and stuff like that, but I never needed it. Like, solo Spider-Man movies were always enough for me. Like, I loved the Toby movies and even Andrew's movies, like I thought were the first one was great. Really enjoyed that. I thought he was a better Peter Parker. I thought he was a better Spider-Man. To this day, the like web swinging scenes in Andrew's movies have not been matched. They are absolutely
They're fucking
incredible.
amazing.
They're amazing. There's this page that I follow on Twitter, and it's like, I think it's called Comic Book Shorts or Comic Book One Shots or something like that. And it's just like 4K high definition, like 3 or 4 second clips. And like I'll be scrolling through my feed and they'll just pop up, and it's always like little clips of Andrew's Spidey doing weird shit with like his web shooters and stuff like it. It's just the detail in that movie, especially the second one, the detail in those movies. They were made for Spider-Man lovers. Now I know the movie didn't go down too well, but at the same time, it was just incredible.
You know what it was, dude? Like in terms of the second movie, because the second movie wasn't bad story wise, it was bad costume wise. That's all.
Yeah,
In my opinion, that's all it was. It was
yeah,
like, what the fuck? Why'd you do this?
yeah. Like if they redid Electro and they made him out and they made him more like the way that what they did to him in No Way Home, I think it would have been better. It's the fact that
Oh
he was
yeah,
blue and all, and he looked ridiculous. Like it was just kind of crazy.
and
Um,
and
and
the only thing
Harry as
is
well.
like
I didn't like Harry either.
they just like it just felt like they used spirit gum and stuck a bunch of like pubic hair on his face and was like, all right, there
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah, he looked like he was very ill, like, and it was very weird. I was very taken aback by it.
And it made sense because like he was sick, but like, come on, like
Yeah.
you don't need to make it extra sick.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, and fuck off with the teeth thing. Like that was so stupid.
I know, yeah. Yeah, it looks like he went in the space of 10 minutes. He went to going from like having like these like rich teeth to being like, looking like he'd been living on the streets for 20 years.
Yeah.
It was kind of fucked up. So yeah, like I'd love to talk to you about some predictions for season 2 of The Last of Us, but you haven't played the game, so I don't really want to talk about it until you play the game. We
I'll
can
get
kind
it.
of
I'm definitely.
we can revise the subject when you play the game, and I suppose it might be a nice video or it might be a nice podcast to do, like a kind of before the release of season 2. Maybe we could do a kind of prediction stream or something like that, where we kind of go through what we think they're going to take from the game, what they're going to do new, because they have said that they're going to do a lot of different things, but it's going to be the story of the second game, but just kind of paced differently and told differently. So again, I can't really say anything about that until you play the game. So we'll talk about it soon. Mandalorian episode 3. What did you think?
Yeah, it didn't hit well for me. I think story wise, like, yeah, that's cool. That's great. But I called it, man. Like I knew that, like when I was looking at Bo-Katan, I'm like, they're trying to shoehorn her back into like into the group, like as quickly as possible. And it fucking happened. Like as soon as the second episode finished up and she was like near the waters and she had to pull him out of the waters because of that giant monster that was there.
Yeah,
like it was just and like the moment she like popped up in the third episode and she had her helmet on, like I know that she kept her helmet on at the end of the second episode, but the fact that she never took it off afterwards, after Din Djarin woke up, meant that like she was going to maintain her status as as like a person of Mandalore. Simply like why? Like she didn't give a shit. Like at what point does she start believing? Is it because of Din Djarin? Like I don't I don't understand this whole flip-flop situation. She hasn't, like in my opinion, she hasn't been shown enough to be like, wow, I really care about these people.
I think what's happening is she's desperate. She has no followers anymore. Like when you see her sitting on the throne, she's by herself. Everyone else has left. She doesn't have, like, I think they're called the Night Owls. Like they're all gone. Like she doesn't have an army anymore. She's not the leader of Mandalore. Everyone's abandoned her since she lost the Darksaber. So, she's never been part of the Kree of the Mandalore that Din is part of. They're like a wacky kind of cult religion in her eyes, and
they're like the Death Watch, right?
No, so they're basically like a different version. Like they're like a cult who believe that, or they call themselves like the pure Mandalores or whatever, because they never remove their helmets, but they're to everybody else they're kind of seen as extremists, and Bo-Katan has never been a part of them or never would be. But I think now I agree with what you're saying about the helmet, and I didn't see that coming because she takes it off so often. But right. it is a clever enough storyline, I suppose, for her character, because it's like, okay, now she technically can kind of sneak into this organization and use them for her own benefit. But she's definitely not a believer, and she does mention that as well. Like when the armorer says to her, like, you are a Mandalorian now. It's like, well, I don't believe in your ways. And she's like, well, until you remove your helmet, you will be Mandalorian. So she's like, probably thinking to herself, okay, I've got an army of Mandalorians now. Happy days.
Mm-hmm.
And Din Djarin, we got the Darksaber and everything. So it's like, okay, I'll stick with these guys for as long as I can here. And try and use them for my benefit, and then see where it goes from there. I think that's her plan. But the whole mythosaur thing is interesting. Again, I don't really know too much about the whole history of it, but I think what's being implied in the show is that the armorer killed the mythosaur because she has the head hanging up in her like quarters or whatever. But now Bo-Katan knows that she's telling lies. Like the mythosaur has been seen under the water, so it's still alive.
Oh,
so
yeah.
The armorer is talking shit basically.
Right,
it's gonna be interesting to see, because it's gonna obviously put a divide in Din, because he's not gonna be like, oh, what else is she lying about?
Right, and I think that's what at first, like when I was mentioning the whole like, oh man, they're bringing her in kind of thing.
Yeah,
like when you brought back the fact that the mythosaur is still alive, like in my head, I'm like, oh shit, you're right. Like this is completely just an infiltration story now. Yeah, like it's just she might have been okay with everything. But now she saw that, and now she's going to just keep the helmet on so that she can find out what truly happened.
Yeah. I just want to bring this comment up from the chat. So basically, we spoke about this quite a bit last week, and I put a couple of shorts up about it and everything. But we were talking about people wielding the Darksaber last week, and we were kind of saying like, how the hell is Moff Gideon swinging it around like a mad thing, and Din can't even lift it up? And now this week, and this kind of goes on backtracks to last week, but I'm kind of like doubling down on this now. Bo-Katan obviously has had the Darksaber for years, so she's obviously, I don't think she's force sensitive. I don't think that's ever been, now prove me, I might be wrong. Leave a comment below if I'm talking shite, or correct me. I'd love to be corrected, but I don't think she is force sensitive. But she's able to wield the Darksaber like beautifully, and I think the last 2 episodes, Bo-Katan's been an absolute badass. I've been fucking loving her in the show. Sure. And I think it would kind of make sense that she wielded the saber for so many years. It's like it would, you would think that she'd be able to use it. And to go back to last week's point where we were talking about how Dave and John have said that it's been 2 years since the last since Grogu was dropped off. So he's had the Darksaber for 2 years, and it's kind of weird to me that he still can't even like swing around and do a proper swings with it. So yeah, I don't know. I think what they're getting at is just like, obviously the longer that you hold it, the more you can get used to it. Or if you are force sensitive, the Darksaber will play ball. So I don't know, maybe Bo-Katan is force sensitive and maybe Din isn't. I don't know. Like I was thinking, I think that maybe they might be trying to insinuate that maybe Din will become a Jedi or something. I don't know. I really don't know.
I mean, if that's the case, then he would have at least been able to like swing it decently if he was at least a bit force sensitive. But I mean, it just like, it's like I told you before, man, it's this kindergarten shit. Like it's like they're just making up rules on the fly because we still don't have any sort of true lore about what like how the Darksaber works. And one thing I saw was like there was a TikTok that I saw on the Darksaber, and their theory was that it was like it's the opposite of the lightsaber, and therefore it's like light embodies like no mass, whereas like dark embodies like mass. And so therefore it's like a black hole.
Yeah.
Which is why it's so heavy. But like at the same time, it's so hard to take it as such, because then that would mean that if you were to have a black hole against the light source, then that would mean that the lightsabers would like kind of dry out or like turn off in the sense, wouldn't they? Like, wouldn't it be an opposite kind of situation? But it doesn't. They like, it still works the same way. It's just built differently. And because we haven't had enough of a solid lore about it, it's like, what do you want to do with it? I don't know. Let's make Moff Gideon like run with it as if he's like been a martial arts expert this whole fucking time, or like he's known this sword for his fucking the whole. And I don't know, like how long has it been since the fall of Mandalore? Because that's around the time that he had stolen the blade, right?
Yeah, so again, I'm a little patchy on because I didn't watch all of Rebels. I've seen bits, I've seen all the Ahsoka stuff, and I haven't seen all of it from start to finish. So I'm a bit patchy on it. But, and Andre talks about this in the chat as well, is like Sabine had the dark saber, and you
Mm.
do, and I have seen the episodes where she gets it, and she's basically getting trained by a Jedi to use it. And she does have problems lifting it and stuff like that as well, but she does become a master of it too. And I think she's going to be in the Ahsoka show, as far as I know. But maybe Andre, you can confirm this. But like, Rebels takes place obviously after Episode 3, but before Episode 4. So I don't know how close it is to Episode 4. I think maybe the end of Rebels might be maybe 5 years before Episode 4. So then you've got like maybe 7, 8, 9. We're about probably 9 years, if I'm right in what I'm saying. It's about 9 years or so between when Sabine had the saber and when we're the events of the show that we're seeing now. So
Mhm.
9 years is probably a long time for Sabine to have it. And I don't know when did they explain in the Mandalorian. No, because Sabine obviously gives it to Bo-Katan. I don't
Mhm.
know when she does that, and then obviously how long then she has it for before it's stolen by Moff. But like the very first scene we see Moff Gideon with that saber, do you remember he gets out of his like little TIE fighter or whatever, and he just puts the dark saber up in the air like straight away, and it's like
Yeah.
take it like Din Djarin can't even do that. Like it's just crazy. Like I hope they really explain it, because it is kind of, as you say, like it's schoolyard shit. Like we don't know what's going on. There's different rule sets for different people and
And,
stuff like that. And
and I would love for it to be that, although like the for like what was it, Pre Vizsla, like they had the dark saber, and yes, they were a Jedi, but like imagine that they created the dark saber because he also had like the dark force, like the dark side of
but
him,
yeah,
like put into the blade.
yeah,
And so that's why it's heavy to others, because it's like not very many people like are influenced by the dark side.
yeah.
And so
I
it's
don't
heavy
know.
to, like, whereas Moff is like kind of like, you would
He's
say that
dark.
he's part of
Yeah.
the dark. And so
Okay.
like, so therefore like he's able to swing it better. And so Bo-Katan being an exile, or like someone who's angrily like, I am the rightful ruler, showing like anger, showing emotion, those are feelings of the dark side, and therefore like she's able to swing the blade no problem because she has the emotions. um Din Djarin himself, he does not have emotions whatsoever. He cares for Grogu, he has feelings for Grogu, those are emotions, but there's nowhere in there that shows like guilt, remorse, any sort of like dark side feelings.
I like that. That's a very kind of clever take on it that I didn't really think of. So again, I don't know if I knew everything about like Tar Vizsla, the original Jedi who like created the dark saber. I might be able to say that you're right or wrong. I don't really know, but maybe he did dabble in the dark side, and that's why maybe dark people can wield it better. But I don't
Yeah.
know, like because Bo-Katan again, depending on your kind of viewpoint, like some people see her as good and some people see her as a bit, but like a question mark over her. So it's like,
Mhm.
yeah, that kind of does make sense. And Din obviously, believes that what he's doing is the right thing. He believes he's good. He believes in his creed. And he follow, like, he's very much kind of like it's kind of like the Jedi practice in a way. Like, so, like, he's very
Yeah.
much, a priest basically, So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, that's it. That's actually quite interesting. Did you know as well? I don't know if we spoke about it last week, but a little fun fact. But John Favreau is in the show. Like he actually plays
Yes.
the Vizsla character, like the descendant of Vizsla.
Yeah,
Um,
the true heir to the
yeah,
dark saber.
yeah. But I think it'd be kind of funny, like if they actually put him in the show, and he basically, that he is like a Jedi, and what I mean. Imagine he writes himself into his own show as like a badass Mandalorian who's like Mandalorian who gets the dark saber and becomes a Jedi and stuff like that. Would just be absolutely hilarious.
Well, and we I think we talked about this too. Like the
I
armor
think we
takes
did.
their helmet off, and it's actually Dave Filoni.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, bro. Honestly, I love those two so much that they can do whatever they want. I'll let them away with it. Um, yeah, like I don't like. I like what you're saying. I don't know where the rest of the show is gonna go though.
But
I think we're right in what we're saying. I think Bo Katan's going to use the Mandalorians to her advantage to try to kind of put a war on and try and take back Mandalore.
Mhm.
And Andre asked it to up earlier in the chat there, but it's like, who, who do you think that she can rule as Mandalore? Like, do you think she should get their saber back and rule Mandalore, or do you think that Din should get it or keep it? Sorry, and he should rule. It's hard to know.
I mean, didn't really want it in the first place, so I think it'd be fine if she took it back. But
Mm,
I think the idea for this season is going to be exactly what you had talked about a moment ago with the mythosaur still being alive.
yeah,
There is some collusion going on between the denizens of Mandalore, and so like, excuse me, Mandalore, um, and I would say that the armor is not the true person that should be like holding on to this group, and therefore
yeah,
Bo-Katan is going to do exactly what you said, which is like lead the people, um, but in a sense lead them against the armorer, or
mm,
reveal the armorer to be someone not to be trusted.
gotcha.
Um,
Yeah,
um, and I think that would be cool. Like I think that like internal struggle is always a fun thing to watch. We saw that in the prequel movies, like especially with the Jedi Council and whatnot. And correct me if I'm wrong, Vento, but like, do you feel like this is kind of itching or like getting into that prequel kind of feel of it? Of like you have this council of people, you have this group that believes in something so much that they're blind to like what's going on in the outside world.
I think so, and I think Dave and John are such George Lucas fans and appreciators that I think that they're trying to bring Star Wars back to what Star Wars used to be and should be. I think that even just the fact in this week's episode, and we haven't even spoke about it yet, but like we get to see Coruscant again. Like, this is the first time that we've kind of been on that planet for a stretch of time in this time period. Like, obviously, we saw it during the Andor show, but it
Mhm.
wasn't as it didn't feel like it was as in depth as it was in this show, because we got to see a lot more of like the Empire, and we got to see like the Imperial ships and stuff like that, and we got to even go aboard them and stuff. So it kind of felt more Star Wars than Andor did, because you got to see they went a little deeper on it.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I wasn't a massive fan of that part of that part of the episode. I thought it slowed down the episode quite a bit, and they kind of maybe wasted a couple of minutes that they could have done with more kind of in-depth storytelling with Bo-Katan and stuff like that. I think they kind of
Yeah.
messed up a little bit there with the pacing of the episode, because it felt more like an episode of Andor and than it did an episode of The Mandalorian for
Mhm.
most of the episode. So I don't know. Like, I think I think I think the story that they're trying to tell with that whole section of the episode is that they're trying to insinuate that he's going to be manipulated to go back to working on the clone tech, which is going to link in with the sequel trilogy, because I think that's where we're probably going to see the creation of Snoke, and
Mhm.
maybe we might get a little hint that the Emperor is still around, which I think would be very crazy if you think about if you were to watch this in like a timeline order. Like, say you're new to Star Wars and you're watching this in a timeline order, you're gonna actually potentially know that the Emperor is alive before you watch Episode 7, which is kind of fucking weird. Um, yeah, because like I don't really want to talk about the sequel trilogy, but the last
Yeah.
movie was such a mess that they didn't even know Palpatine was coming back until they started writing the last episode. It was completely just picked out of thin air. Like, and when the actor Ian McDiarmid, or Ian McDiarmid, isn't it? Yeah, when he was like called up to reprise his role, he's just like to J.J. Abrams. Am I not dead? Like, what are you talking about? So, yeah, like, I don't know. It's a messy one, but like I think the whole point of this show has been to kind of do a more tidy transition from the OT, the original trilogy, into the sequel trilogy.
Right.
And if they could do
I
Tron right and, tie this all up and, maybe do more Luke, like, would you be interested in watching a Luke show? Like,
um
CGI Luke for 2 seasons where he's building his temple, little young Ben Solo and all that sort of stuff. And then you see like the birth of the Knights of Ren and all that sort of stuff. Like, I think that'd be kind of cool. I'd be down. I'd definitely be down to watch that.
I think it'd probably work out, but honestly, I think that the sequel trilogy kind of ruined that magic for me.
Mm,
I wouldn't be too interested because of what I understand is going to happen.
yeah,
I think that it's much like we've talked about in the past with Hoffman is that we kind of need to just get away from the Skywalker legend. Like
yeah,
we need to keep that alone. Like we need to just not worry about that anymore. There's plenty of other legends that we could talk about. Like I kind of want to know about the people of the council. Like I want to know like all the adventures that they've gone on into
yeah.
like in the prequel. Like I'd like to know how that council formed.
Mm,
You know, I know that they're supposedly the greatest minds of the of the Jedi Society, but like, why? Like, we have legends of them, we have like stories about them, but like, I'd love to see that in action and get to really understand why these characters deserve to have a seat.
yeah,
So like that's something that I would like to see. In terms of Luke, I think that the Jedi, like I said, the Jedi Temple is kind of smirked. So like, I don't know if I'd really want to see anything in terms of the sequel trilogy anymore. I think that I'm kind of over it.
mm,
I know that everything's trying to be tied in, but I think at the very least, if they're just doing it Mandalorian wise, like just within the season, and they just kind of show off like this little connection here and there, I'm completely fine with that. But I don't want them to stray too far from what they've created with the Mandalorian because this is
yeah,
actually a show that like we're enjoying, that we're feeling this sense of like, oh my god, like we're getting a new story. We're getting like different things. We're still getting like a little bit of politics here and there, but it's politics that we've never even heard of because it's on a planet that we've never really explored before. And I love that. I think
yeah,
that's amazing. You
yeah,
know, because like we're so tied into Coruscant, we're so tied into Tatooine. Like we even were getting a little tied into Alderaan, even though it's already destroyed. But like we got to see a bit of Alderaan, and that was kind of cool. But
mm.
like those worlds are kind of done. Is Naboo the home world? Is that or is Naboo like the city?
Naboo is the name of the planet, and that was the planet
Okay.
where like Padme comes from, and like it's very much used in the first movie,
Hmm.
but you don't really see it then after that. But like I loved Naboo in the first film. You know,
Yeah.
it's a great planet, but yeah, I don't think they ever go back there. Fun fact: when I think when George Lucas made his last edits to Return of the Jedi, like the way he like remastered the original trilogy a couple of times and added some bits in and took some stuff out, whatever.
Hmm.
He added in a scene, obviously, where at the very end where he like put Hayden Christensen in, and then when they're doing the celebration with the Ewoks and stuff, they actually show like planets like Coruscant and planets like Naboo, which would obviously never have been seen in the 80s and 70s when those movies were first made.
Hmm.
But you see them now, so it's like I thought that was really cool. And I kind of feel like The Mandalorian, why it works so well as a show, is just the fact that it really does feel like George Lucas Star Wars. It really does. Um, I think the the fact that it's like a kind of Western vibe, and there's not really massive amounts of Jedi in the show, or well, there wasn't at the start, but there is kind of more now. But at the start of the show, you still felt like you were in the Star Wars universe, even though you weren't really like it. Didn't feel like you weren't messing around with Jedi's and stuff like that, but it still did feel like it, which I thought was tip of the hat to the boys for creating that. But now I think what they're doing, the fact that they've got like Luke knocking around and Ahsoka's in it now, and Ahsoka's getting her own show, and it's going to be bringing in live action versions of like Ezra from and Sabine from Rebels and stuff like that. Like I think it's just really expanding on the OT kind of timeline and bringing that into live action, which is for me as a Star Wars fan. Like I started watching Star Wars when I was like 6 years old. Like I saw the very first episode, episode 4, 1977, watched it like 50 times. And then I didn't even know that there was another one, like, and then I found out that there was episode 5, and that blew me away. Like, cause you see like proper lightsaber fights for the first time. And then I'll never
Right.
forget, never like again, all those movies just became so special to me. And then I actually remember being brought to the cinema to see episode 1 Uh, and my little brain, like Jesus, just exploded because it was just like CGI lightsaber fights, like robots getting destroyed. Padme. I was like, oh my god, this is incredible. Getting to see like Anakin, and I was like the same age as him at the time when the movie came out. I was just like, this is incredible. I was like, Darth Vader's the same age as me. Like, it's just, oh, it was wild. I just loved it so much. Like, it was just, so good. So, it's for me the sequel trilogy. Like, if there's people out there that like the sequel trilogy, great. I'm delighted for you. Like, episode 7 wasn't the worst, but it was just episode 4 kind of remastered, but
Mhm.
like for me, this is like episodes 1 to 6 and The Mandalorian. That's Star Wars to me. Like, so everything that happens in that time frame, that's kind of Star Wars. And I think I love the fact that Dave and John are just respecting that and paying homage to the prequels. Like, there's so many little like tips of the hat to the prequel trilogy and the OT trilogy in those shows, like in their episodes. It's magic. Like, that's Star Wars to me. I wasn't a big fan of Andor. I'll watch another series of Andor if they do another one, because I'm just curious as to where the stories will go. But I won't call myself an Andor fan. Andre in the chat brings
That's
up
fine.
Visions as well. I loved Visions. There's actually a video myself and Hoffman broke down that whole series. There's a full breakdown of that entire series on this channel. So check that out, Andre, if you want. I edited that video and put in loads of cool clips and stuff from the episode, so I'm proud of that one. But that was a good show, and I would love a season 2. And I think, why not? And the same with Marvel. Like, the guys should be like maybe even looking to do live action versions of shit like this, where it's like what ifs and all that sort of thing. And
Mhm.
Visions is kind of like the Star Wars version of what if. Like, so it's kind of, I'd love to see some of that stuff in live action. Like, why not? Just give us it
Yeah.
all. Give us it all. And I want an Old Republic trilogy. Give it to me now. Yeah.
It's kind of funny, man. Like that, seeing you being so excited for Visions, whereas like you told me in the past before, you're not really a big anime fan.
I'm not. I'm not. Like, I loved Arcane. I loved Invincible. Um, I love all the old, like, Spider-Man cartoons from the 90s and stuff like that. That's not really anime, but
It's
Visions was cool.
animation.
Yeah, yeah. It's not anime, like, but yeah, I don't count that as anime, but I want to see more Arcane. I want to see more Invincible. Um, and Visions had some incredible episodes, and some of them were dog shit. So it was very kind of in the middle for me. Some of the episodes were terrible, but some of them were fucking fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And we spoke about last week, the the banned lightsaber technique where, like, you turn off the saber and turn it back on. They actually do it in
Which I
Visions, and it was so cool. It was so
it's
cool.
it's the most brutal, illegal, coolest thing
Yeah,
ever.
facts. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I loved it. I loved it. Um, yeah, like, I'm just excited to watch more like Mandalorian.
Yeah, me too.
I should have
But
realized there's a little Grogu behind me on the shelf,
there is.
and he's green as well. So it's so funny.
I I gotta say, like going back into the third episode, I agree with you. Like the whole storyline between that scientist, I can't even remember his name, and the lady who was with Moff Gideon,
Yeah,
it's so like limp that I can't remember their names. But
exactly.
I do know that the important thing was that he was trying to work on cloning technology, and
Yes,
it sounds like she just stole the tech
I
and then
think
blamed him.
what's going happening there is that obviously she used to work for Moff Gideon, so she was on Moff's ship in the first season. I forgot that she
Mhm,
was in the show until when they showed her in the recap. So I was
mhm,
just like, oh, okay, who's this again? I was like, whatever. And then obviously, from what I think is happening, is that she's going to be working potentially with Moff, or potentially with what will become the First Order in the
mhm.
sequel trilogy. And I think this is where, like, she's going to get him or manipulate him back into cloning, and then it's going to turn out that she's working for Thrawn, or fucking Moff Gideon, who's working for Thrawn, who's working for Snoke, who's working for the Emperor. Like, I think it's all going to
Mhm.
tie back into Episode 9.
I
So
I
I don't
just
know
I
how I feel
just
about
want
it.
I just want Juan Carlo Esposito to walk up to like Bo-Katan and Din Djarin and do, you have something that I want.
He's such a badass, man. I'd love to see him back in the show. Like the fact, or like it'd be a cool story if you found out that he like fled custody, or like broke out of the prison or something like that. Like I think it would be cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think Andre says in the chat there, Ahsoka's going to blow minds. I think Ahsoka will be incredible. I really do. Like
I'm super stoked for it.
I went back recently and watched the Ahsoka episode of Mando season 2, and it's incredible. Even just the opening, and I'll never forget when I watched that the first time. The opening of that episode, because I remember like it starts and you're looking out onto like a kind of wooded area, and I was like, oh, what's going on here? It looks like kind of swampy place, kind of looks like Dagobah a little bit or something. And I was like, what's going on here? And then you just see the lightsabers coming on and her like force running across the screen and stuff. I was like, oh shit, here we go. I was like, this has started beautifully. And yeah, again, it was like samurai style, and it was so good, man. My God. Rosario Dawson is like, she's so cool. Like, she's done such a good job in that role.
Like Rosario Dawson's a sleeper actress. Like any role that I've ever seen her in, she just fucking kills it.
Yeah, like she was great in the Marvel shows on Netflix.
She was great in Sin City.
Yeah, and even like I think she was in like Clerks and stuff, wasn't she? And like Jane Silent Bob and all that sort of stuff. Like, so like she could do it all. She really can. And the fact that she's jumped into this like kind of like samurai kind of role where she's like a wise elder, like sort of leader. It's like she could just do it all. She can do it all. Speaking of like the Netflix shows, I saw that Daredevil started filming this week in New York, and there's a couple of like behind the scenes photos floating around of like Charlie Cox in the full gear. He's in the suit and he's got the glasses on and everything, and it looks just like him from the Netflix show. I'm so fucking excited for that series, bro. It's going to be incredible.
The only thing that upsets me though is the fact that Deborah Ann Woll and I forgot the other guy's name who plays Foggy, like they're not coming back.
I wonder though, is that just for this season? Like, I wonder, are they going to be potentially back at a later stage? I think they've got a bit of explaining to do in that show as to like kind of how the timeline is different and where this Daredevil sits in the MCU. And I think maybe he just has a slightly different past. I think like obviously Kingpin is still around, so I would say my prediction is that the show is going to take place around like the Echo stuff, and Echo's linked in with Kingpin, and then maybe, I don't know, maybe this version of Matt has never seen Kingpin before, and then it's like is that going to tie into Spider-Man? Are we going to see like Spidey versus Kingpin then with Daredevil on the side? I think Tom Holland could be in the Daredevil show. Like, I really think like this show's they're gonna do this one right. Like, this is going to be potentially the first like Disney Plus show that is going to be just like absolutely incredible, like movie quality stuff. Like, I really do think so.
Well, then, I mean, I know that John Bernthal said that he's taking up the role of the Punisher in the show as well, which makes
that's confirmed. Yeah,
it makes me hopeful that they're
officially back.
Yeah, and it makes me hopeful that they're going to keep this as a like TV mature show, and that it's going to be like as what we expect it to be from the Netflix show.
That again is also confirmed. It's going to be rated M for mature, and I wouldn't say that they're going to be like having Frank Castle going through like like that scene in season 2 of the show where he like kills everybody in the wing of the prison. Like, I don't think they're going to go that far, but I think they're gonna have him like shooting people and killing people and stuff. And I think Matt's gonna have a dark side like he always does, and he's gonna be beating the shit out of people. Like, I think that's definitely gonna happen.
Because that's ultimately what Daredevil is. It's just him fighting, like literally him fighting his own demons to prevent himself from killing people because he wants to protect his city.
Exactly. Do you think She-Hulk shows up in the show because he did a cameo on her show?
I would love for She-Hulk to show up, but in a different view, like a much different. Like, it has to be like dark, gritty, like She-Hulk. Like, I don't give a fuck, She-Hulk. Because if I see her again and she's just like from her show,
twerking and stuff,
I'm done.
Like, twerking into New York, twerking.
To be completely fair, that scene wasn't the worst. The scenes to me that were the worst was basically the group therapy sessions over like her relationship issue. I don't want to get into this, man. I'm gonna
Yeah.
I'm gonna end up like going crazy about
We're
this
gonna
again.
sidestep it. We're gonna sidestep out of She-Hulk. Don't worry. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm trying to think like while we're kind of chatting just news and stuff, is there anything else? Star Wars
No-
related, I saw that there was, there was meant to be a movie coming out, being made, like a Star Wars film made by Kevin Feige. That got cancelled. So that's not happening anymore.
Hmm. Maybe it wasn't up to standards. Maybe they didn't think it would be like well enough.
Yeah.
I know Feige is put yes, if Feige's pushing into the whole Star Wars scene, that's cool, but like if they don't see it as working out, like that's I completely understand because everyone sees Feige as the person that handles Marvel related things.
Yeah. I would love to see him outside of the MCU just to see what he can do. Because like
Mhm.
I think he first started producing like back in like the year 2000, and it was on X-Men, so he's always been in Marvel as far as I'm concerned. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe again I haven't really looked up his entire kind of catalog of work, but anything that I've known him to do is just Marvel. So I'd be very curious as to how he would handle something like Star Wars. Could
Mhm.
be amazing. He could shine a new light on Star Wars. Like imagine giving him a time period in Star Wars that hasn't been touched, and he could do it differently, and he could start like just putting that Kevin Feige magic into like the Old Republic, for example. Like that would be pretty intense. Like I think that'd be pretty fucking cool.
I I'm all for him doing Star Wars stuff, but I would love for him to be given the ability to just go into the dark side of Marvel.
Yeah,
Mainly for the fact that like I know that you and Hoffman have said before, like DC's much darker. DC has a lot of dark stories, a lot of things that seem a lot more mature and like more well done for the mature audience, like for comic book fans. But Marvel's comics, like I guarantee you, man, if you were to read some of the dark shit that they've got, like it is intense.
yeah,
Like Iron Man getting ripped in half by Thanos and showing like the guts coming out and whatnot. Like that's some dark shit.
mm,
All the like the whole drug situation with like Black Widow and her inability to like have kids and like all that kind of stuff. Like we know that in in the movies, but they never pressed on it. And like
yeah,
that stuff like that is really interesting. Like I'd love to see like the perspectives of like Banner just like sitting alone, knowing that he'll never be alone because he's with a monster that's like,
yeah,
taking over his life whenever he gets angry. Like Tony's
yeah,
like incessant like drinking and getting drunk all the time and just being this like insane alcoholic, which we saw in like the movies, but it wasn't drawn out as like as well as it is in the comics. Like it's bad.
yeah. Like
Um,
he has in the MCU, he has it under control. He's like kind of the philanthropist, kind of playboy, fucking. But
yeah.
you never really see him out of control. And I think that would have been actually a very interesting role for Robert Downey Jr. at the start of his kind of redemption if he was doing something
Right.
like
Yeah,
that.
like-
He probably would have been able to draw on his real life experiences a lot more.
and it would have been so intense. Like
Yeah,
people probably would have been tearing up because they're like, holy shit, this is probably him just
yeah,
coming
yeah,
out
yeah,
on film.
yeah. I think though the way that they did the MC was very clever because they did
Yeah.
keep it kind of inclusive of kids and stuff like that. And it has had dark moments in the MCU, but I think now where they are now, you have to think that most of the people who've been watching the MCU probably watched Iron Man back in like 2008. Like they could have been any age. They could have been from the age of like 10 to 20 or whatever. And the MCU has been going on now for almost 20 years. Like it's crazy. It's 15 years old now. And you got to think like, even if someone started watching that show when they were, or started watching the MCU when they were 10, they're 25 now. So
Mhm.
it's like 25-year-olds have a much different viewpoint and like appetite for content, but they're still obviously going to want to watch the MCU. And then obviously you got to try and bring the new 10-year-olds on board as well. So I think it would be clever, and we've spoke about this 100 times before, but it would be clever for them to take characters like Deadpool, the Punisher, Daredevil, all these guys, and create like a kind of rated R, kind of M for
Yeah.
mature kind of universe where all these guys can just go in there and fuck shit up. Moon Knight, Venom, all these people, like, all the dark characters, get them all in there and just have them doing shit that maybe is a little more loosely tied to the continuity of the MCU, so that the young kids don't have to watch it, but they won't be missing out on too much, sort of thing.
Mhm.
And then you can give the older folk and people like us, and they give us what we want to see. Like, because again, like I Daredevil is probably my favorite like it's definitely my favorite Marvel show.
Mhm.
Easy, hands down. I don't even need to think twice about it. But I think the show, like, I think that even like movie wise, I think Daredevil sits so high up on my list that it's like, I think like we people like me like should have more content like that to kind of focus on. You know what I mean? And this is the time to do it. It's like
Yep.
you've got people like Deadpool coming in and Wolverine. Like what we've heard so far from Wolverine in the MCU is that he's going to be a more vicious version of Logan, and he's going to be like probably trying to kill Ryan Reynolds and stuff like that. Like, it's going to be fucking amazing. But it's like
Right.
now's the time to build on that. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
now's the time to grow that.
100%. Like I want to see like Wolverine cutting Deadpool's head off, holding his head up, and
Yeah.
Deadpool still fucking yapping it up in front of him.
Yeah, dude. Like, I think they've got a real opportunity with that movie to do some fucking very special shit. Like,
Yeah,
very, very special.
because like I said, man, Marvel's no joke. Like you like I'm sure you ask Hoffman, you read any of the X-Men comics, it is not pretty. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of shit that goes down in there.
Yeah, 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 for sure. Absolutely. I saw a potential. I don't know if there's this Marvel updates Twitter page, and I think they do get a lot of stuff right, but sometimes they don't. So I always kind of take what they post with a pinch of salt. But I saw they put up a
Mhm.
post saying that the Secret Invasion show is going to potentially be pushed till May of next year. It's supposed to come out in like November.
Mm.
So I'm like, fuck, if that happens, like, that's another kind of 8 months delay or something, or 6, 7 or 8 months delay. I'm like, shit, like that's kind of sucks. Like, because like we've gone from, again, I know we've spoke about this as well. It's like obviously phase 4 of the MCU, they were trying to do something different. They were trying to have something on the TV nearly every week of the year, and it obviously didn't. It diluted the
Mhm.
content. It didn't work. But at the same time, it's like we got so used to that, the level of content, and now it's just kind of like we're sitting around scratching our asses just waiting for stuff to come out. Like, obviously we had Ant-Man. When was Ant-Man? I don't even remember. It was like, was it the start of
Uh,
February?
it was February, I believe, 17th.
Okay, so yeah, it's
Yeah.
like over a month ago now. But I don't know why. For me, it feels like so much longer. There's a lot going on in my life right now. But I suppose that feels like that was 3 months ago. But it's like, what's the next MCU project? I don't even know.
Right. And it's just it's hard to tell, man, because like there's not really anything being talked about right now. And yeah, as far as like checking like Marvel updates, there's not very much. Like it's just casting. It's
Yeah,
all it is just casting. And
it's
that's
just such
fine. Like
it's a weird place to be in right now, though,
right.
because like it's like phase 4 just out the gate. It was just like WandaVision. It was Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It was Loki. It was, I think, Loki season 2 is the next show. Is the next thing. Sorry, I'm just thinking. The second I said Loki, I was like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
Loki season 2. But yeah, like there was so much going on, and then movies coming out, and movies were good, but the shows weren't great. But at least it was like something new every week for us to talk about. Now
Mhm.
it's just really weird for them to strip it back so much now, and just for someone like me to not know exactly what's coming out and when, that kind of tells you just how different the vibe is from phase 4 to phase 5 right now. I
I,
think alarm bells are going off in the Marvel studios right now. I think like they're kind of panic stations. Like it's like, let's whip everything back. Let's fucking put a halt on everything. Let's go back to the drawing board. Let's put more money in. Let's like, go back and revisit these shows. We can't have another fucking show like She-Hulk with shit CGI. We need, it's like we need to pump
yeah.
money into this in time.
Like shit CGI, bad storytelling, like
Yeah.
no reference to anything whatsoever in terms
Yeah.
of like the universe. Like it's horrible. Dude, honestly, like as we talk about this, the more and more I think about it, and I think DC is kind of in the same rut. Um,
Yeah.
you know what we're missing? We're missing cartoon shows. Like
True.
we're like I'm not like what like you remember like the Teen Titans show, like that was like technically for kids, but like it was adult oriented as well. It had like some dark moments as well. And
Yeah.
you know, I know that like you never really watched Earth's Mightiest Heroes, but that show is fucking awesome.
Mm,
Like that show is great. Like we need animated shows. Like that's what Disney's all about too. Like they should be really rocking that shit. Like but I
fact.
know that they're trying to push into the like the live action scene, and they have like we've had over a decade of this shit. Like
Yeah.
I think we're fine. Like if you're gonna take a step back and like reevaluate everything while you're at it, can you get some of your animators to like make a Marvel show? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
like do it, man. Like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
DC too. I don't know if you're listening, DC, but you got to make your shit too because you make some good shit.
Oh, DC
Like
fucking, they know what they're doing.
they're fucking ballers. Like they're 100% on that. Like I like their animations are fantastic. I love Marvel, but I agree with you, Finto. Like the DC animations are like top tier.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I just pulled this article up, and it's actually cool now with my new setup in my new house. I have like a proper monitor, so I can actually share stuff now. Because I used to not be able to share stuff because my other monitor was vertical. So yeah, we're doing some show and tell here. So I just googled. This is an IGN article that's up, and it's with the up and coming stuff for the MCU.
Mhm.
And I don't think this is right. I don't think even now. I don't think this is right. I think they've pushed it to November, but I think it's going to get pushed again. So Secret Invasion is probably meant to be coming out like now, like soon.
It's supposed
But
to, yeah.
yeah, but it's not gonna like. I think if we see this around November, I'd be shocked. I think this is going to push into 2024, to be honest.
Mhm.
But the next official thing is Guardians 3. I completely forgot about this fucking film, dude. I feel so
To be
bad for saying this,
I feel
but
the
I
same way.
completely forgot. I
I
forgot.
agree. Like
Yeah,
I looked over and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot. It's
yeah.
like because
How could we
like there's no
forget?
marketing. There's hardly
Yeah,
ever any marketing right now.
because even when James Gunn announced like he was taking over DC and stuff, like Kevin Feige was like, "Oh, I can't wait for him to come out, and I want to see what he does, but he has to finish doing Guardians first." And it's like,
Mhm.
"Oh yeah, I forgot he has to finish Guardians." So yeah, look, whatever. I I'll watch the film, of course. I'll go see it opening weekend, of course, because I support Marvel no matter what. But am I like over the moon excited for this? No. Like I think Adam Warlock could be cool. I just feel like this is like a kind of it's not a pointless movie, but I think it's definitely kind of like the end of an era sort of thing. So it's kind of like I don't like what's going to happen with these characters after. I think there's going to be deaths in the movie for sure, right? We know
Mhm.
we kind of know this, but there's going to be like I don't know if Star Lord's going to die, probably not. But it's like, what's a Star Lord do after this? Like, are they going to be bringing out Star Lord solo movies? Are they going to be bringing out Gamora solo movies? I don't know. It's just like it all seems so up in the air for me. As it's kind of just like it kind of dampens my excitement for it in a way because we know that like Batista's done. We know his contract with Marvel is up. So whether they kill Drax or he just walks off into the sunset, either way, it's like shit. He's gone. Like Rocket's probably could be gone as well. Groot could be gone. Like there's just so much going on here that I'm kind of sad because like I do like these movies. I'm not a massive fan of them. Like the first two movies, I wouldn't really rank them very high in my MCU top tier list or whatever. But I think that they're good, but they're not amazing. So I
Right.
suppose this is kind of just the end of a trilogy that I'm kind of like, yeah, it's exciting or whatever, but like I don't
Well,
need the Guardians in the MCU going forward.
well, and,
You
and
know?
and that's the thing, man. It's like I know that we've talked about this before, and I believe like in terms of this, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is definitely going to be a trilogy. It seems like it's going to end on a note where we're kind of done.
Yeah,
Whereas like Ant-Man and the Wasp, like Quantumanium, that wasn't to me wasn't part of a trilogy. There wasn't really like an end result and like, oh my god, like nobody died, like it's not the end of him. So like they're trying to it sounds like Guardians is actually ending. So like
yeah, yeah,
and the same thing for like Thor. um Technically we have like a new like we're possibly having a new trilogy, or maybe they just call it a saga
mhm,
because they kind of ended it with like Thor having a kid with him,
yeah,
like with the hammer and like with Mjolnir and Stormbreaker. Very convoluted. I can't I just don't know anything about that. Like it just feels weird.
yeah,
But yeah, like I think it's weird as well that that like I love what, oh my god, it James Gunn. I love what James Gunn is trying to do,
Yeah.
but I'm not a fan of killing characters,
Yeah.
unless you know exactly why you're killing them. If you're
Yeah.
killing them just for the sake of killing them, you're doing everyone dirty. Like
Yeah.
it's turning back into the old ways of filming, which is let's just do a movie, like a comic book movie. Let's have the villain and then let's kill the villain because
Yeah.
we don't know if it's ever going to come back and we want this to be definite. And that's not what I see with Marvel anymore. Like Marvel needs to be continuous. Like it's
Yeah.
literally the multiverse. Like
Exactly.
you can't stop until it's over.
Yeah. True.
Like,
And like again, like this is it's kind of sad that they killed off Steve Rogers and they killed off well, they didn't kill Steve, but you know what I mean? Like they killed off Robert Downey Jr., Iron Man, and now it's like, we're gonna bring in people like the Fantastic Four, but we're never actually gonna get to see like Tony Stark and Reed Richards like sharing a lab together and like kind of working on shit like that's so important to the comics and stuff. And now it's kind of like the MCU's kind of ruined that in a way, and
right.
it's tough because obviously you can't, if you want to do a continuous cinematic universe, of course, like actors are going to want to quit and move on to other things
Mhm.
or retire or die or whatever. You know what I mean? You can't keep these characters alive forever like you can in a comic book or a cartoon because, actors age so rapidly, like
Right.
I don't know if you've seen Robert Downey Jr. like today. Like he looks like he's fucking 20 years older than he did in Endgame. Like he's aged a
Mhm.
lot in the last couple of years. And it kind of, I don't know, like could he come back to it? He probably could, but I don't know. It just kind of feels
But
like time's just escaping us all. Like, and I think even like people like Chris Evans and stuff. I don't think Chris Evans. I think it's pretty well known that he's going to reprise his role in some shape or form.
mhm.
For like, I think it was announced like maybe 3 years ago that he signed on for 2 more projects, but it's like, can he get to that Jack level again? Like again, like he's aged 3-4 years since he last hung up the shield. It's like I don't think he wants to go into that level of training again. Like he's in his 40s now,
Right.
and like
I
it's just
I
time comes for us all.
what like in my head, Finto, like why don't they just do it the same way they do the James Bond movies? And
Yeah,
just
just
like
keep recasting.
just keep recasting. Like
Yeah,
I don't care if they make like I don't care if Tony Stark turns in like becomes a different ethnicity. I don't care if
yeah,
he's shorter or taller. I don't care if he doesn't look exactly like Robert Downey Jr. Just play him out like James Bond characters. Have a
yeah,
new set of people that you think would be fitting for the role and then have them fill that role. And then like that'll perpetuate it forever. And then we would have that conversation like we did with the James Bond movies because I know you've had this conversation too, Finto. Who's your favorite James Bond?
I'm not a big James Bond fan, if I'm being very honest, but I'm gonna have to
Oh,
say Pierce Brosnan because he's Irish. So,
like I really like Pierce Brosnan too, but I
yeah,
would say like for now, like I would say Daniel Craig is one of my favorites because of the way
yeah,
that he acts in the show. But like that's what I want now. Like I'm kind of in
yeah.
that mode of like
Who's your
I don't
favorite Steve
care.
Rogers? Like,
Yeah, who's your favorite? Yeah, I would
yeah,
love that, dude.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, because who could have been Steve Rogers?
True.
Like
Yeah.
like what if John Krasinski was Steve Rogers later? And then it's like
He auditioned and almost got the role.
yes, and
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying, Finto, is like he
yeah,
could
yeah,
do it. Like,
yeah.
and I know he's older, but like he could do it and be like, "Who was your
Facts,
favorite Steve Rogers?" Oh, I love the Chris Evans era of Steve Rogers. Like
facts.
that's comics. That's literally comics. You have your regular, you have your Ultimates, you have your Ultimates 2, you have your like other M, you have like all your different types of characters that are from different universes even. But you don't
Yeah,
have to do that. You could just do it like different. Like it's kind of like the whole Rhodes thing, the roadie thing.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm here. Deal with it. Like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
Don Cheadle now.
I don't think they like to do that though, because I think they want to keep it as a continuous cinematic universe. So it's like recasting wouldn't make sense. So I can kind of understand where they're coming from. And I think
Mhm.
the Don Cheadle thing, they just had to do that because Terrence Howard wanted too much money. And that was a real world inconvenience that got in the way of what they were planning to do. So I think they had no choice there. But I don't think that they're going to start recasting people in the MCU unless they use the multiverse to do it. And it would make sense, obviously, if you use the multiverse. It's like, oh, here's Tom Cruise, and he's now going to be Iron Man for the next 10 years. And it makes sense because he's from a different universe. And then it's like he gets killed, and then they open up the multiverse again. And they do it that way. But I suppose,
By all means.
yeah,
By all means. Because like
yeah,
if you
just
think
give us
about
the
it, dude,
characters
like
we want, like.
Exactly. But it's exactly how you're saying it. Like, because with James Bond movies, like it's the same thing. 007, like you can't really say that the the Sean Connery era of James Bond films are
It's
in
the
the
same
same
guy.
universe as the
Yeah.
Daniel Craig era. Like
Yeah.
like it's the
Yeah.
exact same thing. It's exactly what you're saying, Finto.
Mhm.
I'm all for it. Do the multiverse. Give us like you're teasing us so fucking hard with the multiverse. Just
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
Cast people.
Yeah. Let's go through the rest of this list just so I can close this off because we're tiny over in the corner. So yeah, like Guardians 3 and then obviously Loki season 2. I'm very excited for Loki season 2 because I think it's now tying into the whole Kang Dynasty thing and all. And I think it's like even after the after credit scene in Ant-Man where we see Loki, I was like, oh shit, yeah, this is great. I love that. The Marvels, I can give or take.
Yeah,
I'll
same
obviously
here.
watch it, but I don't have high hopes at all. X-Men 97 is going to be what you want, the first kind of animated series, and it's going to be, I think they're kind of hinting that this is actually 838 and it's been 838 the whole time, which I think would be
That
fucking
would be
cool.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, because obviously we've seen Xavier with the yellow chair and stuff like that. So if it's not 838, it's a close universe to 838. And I'm like, yeah,
Mhm.
okay, I'm all game. I've seen screenshots from What If season 2, and you've got like the Eternals and stuff like that. So I'm like, okay, kind of cool. It'll kind of mix into phase 4 and stuff like that. And we might get like Shang-Chi and all that sort of thing. So I'm like, yep, cool, sounds good. Want it. Echo, I think we spoke about Echo before as well. It's like could Echo have just been done in Daredevil? I don't know. I kind of like the idea of potentially Echo being a Daredevil series as well. Because if we're going to have Kingpin back, we might have Daredevil appearing in the show as
Mhm.
well. I think that's been pretty much
Well,
rumored or confirmed. And then I wouldn't be surprised if we have someone like Daredevil in that show, that we also get the likes of like Punisher showing up in that show as well. And that could be
right.
fucking epic, bro.
And I would say I'm glad that Echo didn't really fit into Daredevil or even like Hawkeye, because like
Yeah.
it really would have smudged a bit of like what they're trying to tell in terms of the story. You saw what happened in Boba Fett. Like
Yeah.
you just can't do it. Like it's
Hmm.
so fucking hard to do that. And the only reason why it worked uh, better in Boba Fett was because we were given a Mandalorian episode over like Mandalorian into a Boba Fett episode. You know what I mean? So like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
I totally get it.
So like looking at that list, again, I don't know why, but I'm just not in that kind of mindset where I know exactly what's coming up and what's coming out. But like we do have some good stuff in the next couple of months. Like again,
Oh yeah.
we're nearly into April. It's kind of crazy to think about it. Like we're like April is around the corner. It'll be the 20th of April or of March now in a couple of hours for me. Like in 15 minutes it will be actually for me. So it's like it's crazy to think how quick the first kind of quarter of the year has gone. And then we're gonna have a movie in May. Then we're gonna have summertime Loki, which is probably gonna be, I don't know, July maybe. I don't know. Maybe it'll be June. I don't know. But again, like then you're talking about having like potentially 10 weeks of TV for Marvel, which is great. That'll get us into kind of back into September, October time. And then we're gonna have like What If and a couple of like animated series. So I think like this year is actually kind of crazy when you think about it, like because there's only been, for the most of the year, we'll only have one movie, one MCU movie, which again is just so different to the vibe that we had with Phase 4.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, like we're only going to have one movie, and then we're going to have the Marvels in at the end of the year, which I don't think is going to be great. So it's like we'll have to wait pretty much an entire year for another Marvel movie in the cinema, and it might not be good. Now, maybe it'll be great. I don't know. Like maybe it'll be really good, and I think if it links in with like Secret Invasion and stuff like that, maybe it will be good. I won't hold judgment obviously till I see it, but again, I just the hype levels aren't there for me as they
Mhm.
usually would be for other shows.
Right. Um, if we're starting to run short on things, let's. I would say like we can kind of dip into comics, because I know that you're a big DC fan. So to have you dip into Marvel comics would be kind of fun.
Yeah, like I don't mind if we want to do this and we can maybe put up a tweet about it or something like that. But yeah, like
Yeah.
as a collective, maybe as a community, we could like read a comic together and kind of maybe just break it down and talk about it. That could
Yeah.
be cool. I'd like that. I'd be down for that. Like again, we're not going to be short on content. We probably have another 6 weeks of Mandalore stuff to talk about.
Mhm.
There's going to be other Star Wars projects coming out. There's going to be obviously Marvel stuff to talk about as well. I don't think there's anything really DC coming out anytime soon. Again, I feel like I'm out of the loop for some reason. I don't know what it is, but like I know last year we were just so on the ball with everything, like, and it just felt like, even as nerds, like comic book nerds, I just felt like the whole community was talking about so much more. I don't know what it is. Like, I just feel like this year seems like a bit of a slowdown year. I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely gotten quiet. I mean, especially with the announcements that they're going to pull back on a lot of stuff, and
Yeah.
so it makes sense.
Yeah, no, look, I'm not upset that they're pulling back on stuff. And to be honest, I'd almost prefer to wait rather than getting more stuff like we had in phase 4. I'd prefer to wait and let it go back to phase 3 stuff. Like, like, oh, Jesus, man, like, even like after watching Ant-Man, and I was thinking, oh man, like that's the start of a phase and it wasn't that great. And I was like, what was the start of phase 3? Fucking, and I went back, Civil War. I'm like, whoa, that's like, wow, you know what I mean? Like, what a start. Like, Civil War is probably it could be in my top 5 MCU movies ever. Like, it's incredible, and like that whole phase was just mind blowing. Like, so it's kind of sad to see where, like, business decisions that Disney made that have like kind of altered the quality of the MCU. It's
Mhm.
kind of shitty to see, but I really hope that that they actually do revive it and it comes back to its great, like, kind of phase 3 kind of quality rather than just phase 4 quantity. um but yeah, look, I suppose time will tell. But
Yeah.
I have hopes. I do have hopes. I've heard some stuff. I don't know if you heard any of the Nomad rumors that were going around. Did you hear
No,
anything about this?
no.
This will be the last thing I talk about today. We got to break it up soon for the week because we're nearly an hour and a half into this, and I probably could talk about this for an hour. But look, I'll be short. I'll be short with it. But basically, quick shout out to Josh from the Den of Nerds. He put out a great video on it last week. Basically, it's been talked about for a while, but there was a project, and I think I spoke about it on the podcast as a kind of something that I would want. But do you remember we kind of spoke about how we would love to see, say, like a 6-part series of Steve Rogers returning the stones into their time?
Yeah.
So that apparently is on the cards in live action with Steve Rogers, like with Chris Evans returning. But when he returns to the timeline, he's actually not Captain America anymore. He's his character Nomad. So the way Steve Rogers
Mhm.
becomes Nomad in the comics. So apparently that's in talks, or not even, well, obviously not production, but like they're definitely considering doing it. I heard that they actually copyright, like, the way they buy the patents for the names and stuff. They actually
Yeah.
got like a copyright patent for the name Nomad as a project for the MCU. So, you know, I think it's gonna be pretty fucking serious. And like, shout out to Josh, but like, go watch that video. I'll link it in the comments below. But Jesus Christ, like the vibe in that video, like, and just it got me so fucking hyped for what could be. Like, I really think that if they do stuff like this and Deadpool 3 and Daredevil and the Thunderbolts and like Captain America 4, like, I think there's a lot of really, really strong projects coming down the line. And I think that, it will revive the MCU back to where it really can be and should be.
Right. Now, it's funny that you mentioned that, like with the whole like him going through time and returning the stones. There was, I don't know if we ever talked about it during the Quantumania review, but there was a theory that Kang actually killed Steve Rogers and not Thor when he talked about I killed the one with the hammer.
Oh, I like that.
And so, like, how
Yeah.
crazy would it be that you just have like he didn't mention which character with the hammer,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
he's a time traveler. Like,
Yeah.
at what, like, you could interpret that in any way, and I think it
Yeah.
like I think it would be crazy that he killed like Steve Rogers during
Did you
his like conquest.
Did you hear the theory? And as well, I think this actually might happen, but um, the theory that when he went to return the Soul Stone, he actually got Nat back, and Black Widow could potentially have gone on the mission with Steve and continued out his, like, they ended up getting together and so on. And because it kind of, you get the vibe of them kind of having a bit of a weird relationship throughout the MCU. And I think if he saved her and they went through time together, I think like that could be a really cool story, like a kind of love story for the two of them, which I think would be
Mhm.
really cool. And I like the idea as well that he would go back to Peggy, but not actually stay with her.
Mhm.
Because it's like, he knows. Because if you think about it, he realizes he knows the life that she ends up having. So I think Steve is the kind of man that he would go back, maybe have the dance with her, so on, maybe let her know that he's okay, but he wouldn't want to take the life that he knows that she's gonna have away from her. Because she was happy, she had kids, she had a family, she had a husband, she lived a good life, she started Shield, all this sort of stuff. So I think Steve's the kind of man that would not want to take that away from her and change her whole destiny or whatever, so
Right.
I think him dropping off the stone, going to see her, like the way Endgame ends, but then he actually goes back into time and him and Nat have their own adventures and all. I think that'd be fucking sick, man.
That'd be
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah, I'd
And
love
and
it.
it's and it's conversations like that, like you don't even have like I would love to see a live action, but you don't even have to put it live action.
Yeah,
That could be another animated show.
exactly. But obviously there's a lot of talk about Chris Evans doing projects, and I think there's talks of Scarlett Johansson also having potential return projects in mind, and people are thinking that the way we see the different version of the Black Widow at the end of What If, maybe she'll portray that version of Natasha but in live action, and her version stays dead, or
Mhm.
maybe Steve gets her back by returning the Soul Stone or something like that. Like, and then imagine getting to see Red Skull and Steve together. Oh man, I get
That'd be
excited
so
thinking about
awesome.
shit like that. Like, Jesus, man, like that would be so cool. Honestly, like
Mhm.
I would love that stuff. Yeah, that's where I want the MCU to be.
Well,
Like, and
well,
I think it can get back there so easily,
well,
so
and
easy.
it's much like what we talked about with the Loki situation. Like, was he really dead at the end of or during Infinity War? And
Yeah.
it's like, well, we could always make it so that he comes back through the multiverse
Hmm.
and just makes it as if he never died. You know.
Yeah, I don't think he died, and I think there's little bits of evidence there. Like even they mention it in the Loki show when the classic Loki mentions he's like, I pulled the best trick of all. I even tricked the great Titan Thanos. So
Mhm.
he's like I think that our Loki did the same thing because when you go to see him stab him, he's like using his left hand and he's right-handed and stuff, and it's like it's a mirror, like a projection or whatever. So I
Mhm.
actually think that is the case. I think Loki did fake his death and he will return. I think there will be multiple versions of Loki rocking around the MCU after the events of the Kang Dynasty and so on. Loki season 2. Hell
All
yeah,
right.
dude. Yeah, yeah. I'll put it out here. We'll clip it out, but I think that's what's gonna happen. Look, this will be another one like the start of Last of Us, where I'll come back and I'll be like, "Well, I told you, I was right about that. We predict these things." Yeah, look, I think that's it for the cast for tonight, guys. If you're listening to us, thank you so much for being here. Drop us a comment below. Let us know what you thought of all the content and what you think of all the Marvel news and potential future projects and so on. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Take it easy, guys.
Later, everyone.
Bye.